afternoon. Hellas, I didn't actually understand the whole thing, but I will introduce myself again. My name is Handan Boyce. I'm at the present the director, the general manager of Haliç Congress Center, Istanbul. It's one of the newest Congress Center and the biggest and the most beautiful. And I was the previous director of the Convention Bureau. Actually, I worked for the Convention Bureau 7 years. I would say that I was on the wheel, actually driving seat for 7.5, 8 years when the Convention Bureau was started to be really active for the industry in Istanbul. And also I'm the president of the MPI Turkey, and previously held 4 years in the ICA board. So this is me. I will start, but before that I would like to get a little bit grasp of the audience. I would like to find out who we are with us today. Do we have students on the audience? Students? Good, we have the young blood. And meeting industry professionals? Convention industry people? Great, okay. So I will talk a little bit briefly about the meeting industry itself. So what we're talking about, like, we don't call it MICE anymore, it's a meeting industry overall. The convention industry, exhibition industry, which covers events and corporate events, and mainly the association congresses. So what is the size of this industry, why it is so important for the destinations today, so what we can do for that, and again, very briefly, I'll try to be brief, what and how we succeed for Istanbul as the Convention Bureau and, of course, as the whole destination altogether. Okay, this is, I think I'm a bit far from it. Do you hear me? Okay. Yeah, this is what we will be going through today. And I will stress and underline the importance, the role of the destination marketing organization, traditionally said, which is now the destination management organizations, and the convention bureaus. They are the must of the destinations. Okay, the meeting industry overall actually has seen a tremendous growth, mainly over the last decade. It's still intensely growing market, and therefore there is a fierce competition among the destinations. Now we have, around the world, on the globe, 200 destinations truly fighting, competing with each other to get the convention business into their destination. So of course, within this last decade, when we've also gone through the economic downturns and the turmoils, the governments, the local authorities, they discovered that the meeting industry means a lot, has a great economic impact for their city. But that would be a little bit narrow looking, you know, if you consider the meeting industry and it's just, you know, appreciate this industry for the sake of the economic impact, that would be a little bit traditional way to look at it. So, obviously, any destination who wants to have a share from this growing, huge market, they need to have a marketing activities focused on these strategies, and definitely has to have a convention bureau. Because it's a market of specific knowledge. It's a market that's not completely different from the leisure tourism, and the meeting industry, it's definitely not a tourism activity. It has its own dynamics. It's a completely different industry which affects 40 different sectors and almost 1/3 of the whole tourism activities on the world. Okay, so I will go through briefly what was the traditional viewpoint for the meeting industry. Yes, the international events, congresses, convention, all international events, they have the high value of subset of tourism. So there is direct employment, a direct economic impact on the destinations, which is most of the time is a bit hard to track because many destinations, except a couple of them like Canada, States, France, and now in England, they don't have the data to figure out what is the real impact of this industry. That is a big lacking actually for the industry, and which will be recovered over the next 10 years, over the next decade. obviously meeting delegates, every single of them can be your decision makers for the next events. They are all return business with their families, with their group of people, especially if we know that the most of the meetings taking place in the cities, they are the medical congresses. So this social level of these delegates are high, so they are all decision makers themselves. So one of the major things, actually, of the importance of the meeting industry is the infrastructure development required for the cities. So this is actually a total investment on the level of destination, which transforms the destination to a completely new level with the convention centers, with the hotels, with the inner city transportations, airports, and the national flag carriers investments, again, based on this industry. So these were the facts that known. These are the traditional point of views, but the meeting industry leaders now they are coming up with the alternative values for the industry and viewpoints, just a little bit further than the economic impact of it. So the students, the new young people, young professionals, they have the platform to develop themselves. They will have the platform to exchange knowledge. All your doctors, nurses, with every single event coming to your town, not necessarily medical sector, of course, they will find a platform to engage with the global industry of their sectors and develop themselves. And the destination has the chance to develop these sectors if it's not been developed before. Okay, so when we talk about the Convention Bureau, when we talk about marketing the destination to the international meetings, we actually, as the Convention Bureaus, we are more focused on the association markets, which is the most proved itself to be the most resilient market, especially during the last economic turmoil years, during the economic crisis. It's a valuable business. It's a very valuable part of the meeting industry, because all these decisions are taken, especially next destination decisions taken a long time ago, even 6 years ago, 10 years ago, it depends on the rotation of the events, and they are not really easy to change destinations. And the good news is they rotate. If this meeting has been done, let's say in Istanbul, it's for sure that's not going to come back to Istanbul for the next 10 years, so it has to go to another destination. So rotation of the association business is a great opportunity for many other destinations. Well, of course, they all have different patterns. You need to understand as the destination, know very well the association market's dynamic to specifically target to that market. This is the professional marketing strategy which needs to be built to attract association meetings. So they have the lead time, as you see. And another good news is actually, for many destinations, I'd rather say, that the statistics of ICA says that since 2009, it was like that before too, but it's increasing by 11%. It increased that the small size meetings are the biggest category. Surprisingly, everybody's attempt to actually attract the big meetings like 2,000 people, 5,000 people, major big events, and actually that was also one of the mistakes of, I wouldn't say mistakes, but wrong strategy of Istanbul once, or individually the convention centers, I'd rather say. We are all running after these big events. Of course, depending on your infrastructure, you have to target your marketing to the specific events as well. So that's again, I'm coming back to the necessity of the Convention Bureau, because you need a research on these association meetings, how many meetings there are, what is their rotation, when they had been before, whether you can accommodate them in your city or not. Why it says this is good news? Because small size meetings percentage now, it's more than up between 50 people to 150, even from up to 1,000 delegates conventions, they're about 70% altogether. So if you don't have an infrastructure for 5,000, you don't have to get the cardiology congress of 30,000 people. So you know your product. If your product only can appeal 5,000, 2,000 people, there is a huge potential over there. Okay, without going one by one, these are the traditional requirements of a destination, obviously. You need to have we listened with the previous since this morning with the speakers, that you need to have accessibility, obviously. Any destination who wants to receive international business has to have an international accessibility, whether by air, for the conventional business congresses, mostly by airlines, obviously, and by road, by train, especially within the Europe, for the European meetings. The road transportation and the train transportation, for also the sake of the green meetings, is more preferable. But if you are running after the international events, worldwide events, yes, you need to have a good transportation infrastructure and airport, and of course the airlines, not only your national airlines with direct flights to certain destinations, but the good connections or different airlines serving to your destination. So convention centers, again, I will explain a bit more when I'm talking about Istanbul. Yes, you need to have convention centers, not necessarily, as the gentleman was explaining, the biggest one, but a good product which would deliver the requirements of the clients, of the need. But obviously, if you look at it for the future years, you need venues with a good AV technology requirements, because this is the future, that's for sure, and flexible venues, that's the future too, so I will talk about a little bit later on. So when we come to the additional that you need to have accommodation facilities, obviously different varieties, as has been explained before, I'm not going to go one by one, and you definitely have to have experienced industry players in your destination. The service is the most important thing. That's underline this fact once again. I attended the ICA Congress. ICA is, all the meeting industry professionals gathering together. So, we all know what we're looking for. And I'm not going to mention the name of the destination, but it wasn't a successful one because the service provided to the delegates was not up to the meeting standards. Not the convention center, not the hotel. The service was not there, so it affected the whole impression of us about this destination, which is a shame actually, because we could go back as leisure tourists, but because of this sort of unsatisfactory experience, the image of that destination in our minds, because every single of us, we are talking to each other. So what is the most important thing in marketing is word of mouth marketing. If we were pleased with the destination, believe me, we could talk to the buyers, to the different clients, and to, we exchange a lot of information among us. So this is a fact. So there comes your human resources, there comes the, the next generation, the students, which are the future leaders, they need to be integrated into the system. So this is a whole planning, a strategy when you want to be a meeting destination. It's not just the building itself, they don't mean anything, to be honest. Okay, the future trends will definitely be the flexibility, because most of the clients nowadays, most of the buyers, as we call them buyers, but it's okay, associations or corporates, these clients, they are mostly cost sensitive, so the lead times are shorter. If they want a meeting, they want it in 6. It wasn't like that before. They want it in 2 months' time. This is not for the associations, but even the association meetings, they are getting shorter and shorter in lead times. I was very surprised when I took over at the beginning of 2011, the Congress Center. I said there was no marketing effort had been done before. I said probably we're not going to have any international meeting in 2012-13. Forget about it. But I was surprised myself that even now we get meetings, association meetings, not the big huge ones which need more planning time obviously, but 1,000, that's not a bad business, isn't it? 1,000 delegates or 800 delegates from this year to 2013. So the trends are changing, so you have to be yourself, your venues, your destination has to be flexible and innovative, and definitely have to be the strategic partner of these clients. That's for sure. I just put this subsidized, but I'm not going to mention about that, so this is another new trend among the destinations. It's sometimes called bribery in our industry. Some of them are against it, some of them are for it. Some destinations are applying the subsidies supported by the government. If you bring me 2,000 people, I'm going to give you the welcome reception. This is the most naive one, I think. And, I'll pay this much. As simple as that. But, to bring the business in, yes, there are many different methods. The most important one, I think, is targeted marketing and lobbying. So, I'm still going to talk about Istanbul, so I'm just going to go very briefly off this. We all agree, I think, I don't need to repeat it again, that any destination taking seriously the economic growth of their community has to invest in tourism and mainly in the meeting industry, that's for sure. And to be able to do that, you need an organization, a destination marketing organization. Let's name it CVB. It has all different forms and structures all around the world. But I will continue as the Convention Bureau, CVBs. You need to have an umbrella organization, not just for the marketing as it was to be, as a leader of the destination, a strategic leader. Because this body has to organize the future planning, not just do the marketing, and bring all the players together, not only the private sector, but the public-private sectors. So otherwise, everybody, which was the case in Istanbul once, everybody does something but doesn't have a unity. So, as we've been talking about the brand identity, different products, and what will be the slogan. We had 3 different slogans for Istanbul. Everybody was saying something else. And the brand identity, you can have more than one. You can be the most romantic place, most cultural, most historical, the fashion center, a business center. Yes, which identity is targeted to which, a group of buyers, it requires a strategic planning. So for that reason, you need a CVB. I remember, I know, because I was here in 2009, again, very kindly invited to make a speech in Thessaloniki, and we had colleagues from the Convention Bureau then, and I believe that there will be another one in the near future. Because the CVBs, they do, unless you have a Convention Bureau as a meeting destination, to be very honest, you're not taken serious. Because Convention Bureau is a reference for a city. If you have a bureau, that means you are professionally, you know what you're talking about, you know the industry, you know what you're doing, and you organize your city. Otherwise, this is a one-stop shop. Otherwise, the buyers, they don't know, the clients, they don't know where to go. We had quite challenging times to convince the people in Istanbul that CVB is not a competitor to the PCOs. But it took a bit of time. I'll explain that a bit later. Okay, this is the picture of Istanbul from year 1996. Before that, the major meeting was the Habitat in 1996, which demonstrated, which showed that Istanbul can handle. It was a meeting of 8,000 plus delegates, which showed that Istanbul is up to cater big events. That was a sort of the first reference, let's say. But the infrastructure wasn't there at that time. So it was a governmental meeting, obviously, and it was invited by the government. So following that meeting, the local authorities and the government also realized that there is something in this activity, It really affects the city's movement, let's say, towards the future. It did actually. With the other meetings that we invited to Istanbul, we have now 3 convention centers. I would say it was a milestone of the city, and the ICVB's foundation in 1997, it was the most important day, I think, for the future of Istanbul. And then in 2000, for the ITU meeting, one exhibition hall additional to the Congress Center was built, specifically for this event. If the event wasn't there, it wasn't going to be built. So we are a bit funny there, when we invite the meetings first and then we do the construction. But it worked. And then In 2009, in my center, I wasn't the director of the center at that time, but in Haliç Congress Center, World Water Forum, 5th World Water Forum with 20,000 people hosted. So specifically for that meeting, Haliç Congress Center was built. Again, it's a governmental meeting. And for IMF 2010 meeting, the third convention center next to the other one was built too. So now we have 3 convention centers. Of course, it's a matter of question whether we have too many or we still have more. This is another strategic decision. So if you look at the ranking, you can just easily see where we were, now where we are. In 1998, of course, when the Convention Bureau was formed in 1997, it just started, so it means that it took a bit time for to receive the fruits of all these marketing efforts. But in 1998, this is the ICA rankings, by the way, so it only takes the association meetings as a criteria. There is no corporate events in this. So Istanbul had only 14 meetings, and the worldwide was ranked 49th. Now, 2009, we were 17 with 80 meetings, and last year's statistics says that we are 9th with 113 international meetings. That also fluctuates a little bit with the information you provide to ICA, obviously. And on these rankings, EU meetings, the meetings rotating within the EU plays a very important role too. As you all know, Turkey is not an EU country. Well, for a destination, there are many success factors. I just listed, going through a bit my time, I just listed the major factors. Okay, but the fact is, Istanbul is one of the leading finance cities of the world now, that's for sure. And of the Turkey, almost 50% of the tax collection is from Istanbul, and Istanbul produces the 22% of the national gross product. So it's a huge city in terms of the population. Statistically, it's officially it's 13 million. We believe it's 17, more than that. And but it became a center of fashion, the business, finance, culinary, art. I mean, in my convention center a week ago, we hosted the Royal Dutch Philharmonic with the presence of the Royal Prince and the Princess. We will be hosting the New York Philharmonic. You see, it's that when you become a cultural center, art center as a city, then if you have the infrastructure available, then business starts after your reputation, after your successful events, hostings, and references. The business starts flowing into the city. This is what we are seeing at the moment. Touch wood. Okay. So there was one more very, important factors for, pushing Istanbul further. That was the Turkish airline. Governmental meetings, definitely they play a very important role. If, of course, in the case that the government is convinced to invest in the destination and the meeting industry, they need to wake up a little bit. I hope we have no politician around here. Yeah, we are accessible, and I'm not going to talk about Istanbul too much, but I just want to talk about the Convention Bureau. So the structure of the Convention Bureau is not private, is not public. Yeah, there are different structures, but the Convention Bureau had to go some, difficult path as well. It wasn't easy, We had a lot of challenges. First, funding, of course, because it was formed as the economic administration of a TÜGEV Foundation. TÜGEV Foundation is, by the Parliament, is being given the tax exemption for the public community works. And the Convention Bureau started accepting members, the private sector, to support the Bureau's funding. That started with 10 members, 20, because that requires then, it's also a difficult job, and that you have to convince your stakeholders, not only public but private, that you do a good job, and then there is a return on investment there. So then this number of members increased up to 85 now. And my colleagues, my successors are doing a great job. As one of our speakers mentioned, we are on I think the lady that we are doing a good job on the social media, on the press level as well. The major challenge was, I don't know if it's the case for you, the PCOs, the travel agencies that are very strong in Istanbul, they thought that they are the marketing bodies, but under the convention bureau. They said, we cannot do our job. So it took time a little bit for them to understand that the bureau is a not-for-profit body, it's working for the destination, and it gives an unbiased, impartial information about the destination and knows all the services in the city, and they're not working for their own pocket. That's an important thing, of course. And once they realized that the bureau brings business into the town, they started to support us a great deal. They became the members. They started to pay their membership fee regularly. And the most important thing, Convention Bureau started to make its own money from the marketing activities they organized altogether. So these are all very, basic marketing activities that we would all know. But what basically a Convention Bureau does, represent the destination in all trade shows. As there was an example from the Athens Convention Bureau, which is also a recent Convention Bureau built in Greece. It doesn't have a very long history, Athens Convention Bureau. I know them personally, my colleagues. So, they see the many buyers during the trade shows. They have a lot of appointments because anybody wants to have any information about the city first goes to the Convention Bureau. Trade shows are important. Again, these are all, we can diversify it, but what I would like to say in brief, the networking within the industry is one of the most important issues. You have to have some faces. When I was offered the job as the Convention Bureau's general manager, I said I will be the face of Istanbul in the meeting industry, and I was. So, I represented my city, my destination. I attended most of the workshop with my team. I was the speaker. I actually managed to go to the ICA board. So these all efforts, not individually as a team, but you have to create a face. You need to be in the discussions, in the workshops. You have to invite your clients, the buyers, which has tremendous effect to this, to introduce your destination. It's not good with saying, I have the brochure, we have a beautiful city, lovely, we have this or that. It doesn't work. What they need, they have to come and see. So you need to figure out their requirements, specific requirements. Every meeting, every client, they might have different, especially the corporate and associations, but it doesn't really matter. You have to have a professional team to find the answers to all requirements and push the authority. We did. It wasn't easy. We pushed the municipality. We couldn't get anything out of the metropolitan municipality of Istanbul. Surprising, yeah? Istanbul, most of the destination metropolitan municipality is the host. In Istanbul, no. We haven't seen a penny of them. But what they did, they constructed the convention centers. They own the convention centers. It's a great support, isn't it? It's a great investment. We don't want more than that from them. The city transportation. They are building the tunnels and the metros. Yes, the cleanness of the city, security of the city. As long as the municipality does all these things they have to do, then the private sector and the professionals, they can market the city for sure. List mailing campaigns and database, yes, you need to have really, if you don't have the professionals digging, researching the events in databases, you are lost, Who you are targeting, which congress. When I was searching about how many meetings, congresses were not in Istanbul before, I came up with a figure of 2,900. I was shocked. There were still 2,900 meetings, rotating association meetings, which were not in Istanbul before. That's a huge number, I mean, considering that we're only hosting 113 a year, it's a big number. So where to start? Who to target? The 1,000 ones to that, because if you have many facilities, then you can work for thousands for this, and 200 for this, 500 for this. And at a certain point, when you have the reputation built in the meeting industry, you don't really need to make too much. Just the business comes, and then you have to deal with the future strategies. So, to convince the local authorities is not easy. To find fundings is not easy. So we convinced the Ministry of Tourism, we said, give us the trade shows. We sell the trade shows, we make the money. And they accepted it. So the ministry, they built all the stands, they did all the construction as the Convention Bureau. We sell the exhibition booths to the private sector, that was our income, and we organized everything about this trade show, the marketing, the food, and catering, and all sorts. But we still made money. It was the 1/3, 30% of our income. That's a good money. And then we, of course, the private sector supported us. And then, you know, all these advertisements and the magazine printings, and you know, you can't make your own money as the Convention Bureaus for sure. You cannot just sit down there and wait for the, you know, the government to give you the money. And as the Netherlands has the case, they suffered a lot because when there is an economic crisis, government should cut the funding. So what are you going to do? You know, you need to have certain other various streams and partnerships. Last but not least, I hope I didn't take too much time of my next speakers. It is really important that whole industry players get together. This is a strategic partnership among the industry itself and towards the client and with the client. This is very important. So you need to have a collective destination mind. You need to have joint efforts, not individual efforts. It is easy on the screen, but it's not easy to create and to build, I'm telling you, because everybody, they have their own ego. Because even when you want to build a convention bureau or a destination marketing organization or DMO, who is going to own it? That's even an issue, you know. We had this issue. Who's going to be the boss? So there should be a collective mind for the future, for the benefit of the community and the destination. And we should not forget our academicians, our universities, our students, not only as a future generation, future leaders, which will take over the jobs and the positions from us and continue, hopefully, but also all the associations, our doctors, our scientists, whoever can, because the lady was talking about ambassador programs, which will be actually organized, ambassador programs in the Convention Bureau too. First, you need to convince them, you need to tell them that they are ambassadors. You know, we need them to sell the destination, to market the destination, because they have to invite these meetings. Some of the meetings, they are not coming unless they are invited by their peers in that destination. So they need to know that they are the host, and we will support them in any ways if they invite those meetings to take place in the destination. So there are so many techniques and tricks to talk about, but I took too much time of you. Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure to be in Thessaloniki second time.